Now that allows us to go back to this time period of the beginning of sorrows. Let's go to the Olivet prophecy, Matthew 24. And we'll read more in detail what signs we should be looking for in this period that's leading up to the Great Tribulation, that's leading up to these signs to flee. And so in the 24th chapter, we'll begin in verse 4. We see a warning being given where Christ tells his disciples, he says, "Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ." Now, many misinterpret this and say, well, there's going to be a lot of people coming around saying, "Look at me, I'm Christ, follow me." Well, someone may do that, but that doesn't sound very convincing. How much more convincing when we understand that what he's really saying is people are going to say, "Yeah, that's the Christ. He came, he died for you." But then using that starting point, they then fill it with false ideas. Yes, Christ died for you. Christ died for you so that you wouldn't have to do a thing. So that, all those commands that were given, those are just done away with. As long as Christ is there for you. And there's many passages that we can turn where Christ himself says, those who practice lawlessness have nothing to do with him, even though they may extol his name. And so we have this burst of false Christianity. Following that, we have in verse 6, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled." In verse 7, it says, "And then there will be famines, followed by pestilences. And all these are the beginning of sorrows." Now, these are things that have been with us. Famine is nothing new. War is nothing new. But this is talking on a scale that's different than what we've seen before. And to show that, let's go to the book of Revelation. Again, I had mentioned how the Olivet prophecy offers several keys to understanding some of the symbolism within the book of Revelation. Christ's statements there were quite straightforward. He didn't use any imagery, didn't use any symbols. He said a specific order of events. When we come to Revelation, the 6th chapter, we see the first of these seals being opened. And so we have these 7 seals, and some of these seals take a little bit of understanding. There's some very clear symbolism being used here. You've heard of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Well, these are symbols. These riders are symbolic of various things. Now, I'm going to skip the first one for a moment, and we'll go down to the second. So remember, the second thing that Christ warned about was wars and rumors of wars. What's the second seal that is broken open in the book of Revelation? In verse 3, it says, "When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, 'Come and see.' Another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another. And there was given to him a great sword." Well, that seems straightforward enough. The red horse of the second seal is very clearly talking about unprecedented warfare. The third seal, in verse 5, "He opened the third seal. I heard the third living creature say, 'Come and see.' And so I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, 'A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine.'" This is talking about a time of pestilence. Well, how do we know that? Well, whenever prices go up, whenever things get a little bit scarce, that's when you start hearing people talk about the price of milk. Can you believe how much it costs for a liter of milk now? Can you believe what it costs to put a liter of gasoline in my car? Can you believe what it costs for a loaf of bread? And that's what John was witnessing here, is someone going along and talking about an immense price for wheat, an immense price for barley, an immense price for oil and wine because of an immense shortage. He was talking about a famine. And the fourth seal, we heard a voice and the fourth living creature saying, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed with him. And power was given to them, so not just this fourth horse, but the first four. Power was given to them over a fourth of the earth, to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. And so when I say that this is on a scale that's unprecedented, on a major scale, a fourth of mankind dying is a massive scale. But what do we see here? The second element that Christ mentioned was wars and rumors of wars. The second seal is a red horse. The third element Christ mentioned is famines. The third seal is famines, a black horse. The fourth element, pestilence, and the fourth seal, pestilence. Enough is lining up here that this can help us to understand the first seal, which many people get wrong. The first seal is found in the first verse of Revelation 6. It says, Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, I heard one of the four living creatures saying with a voice like thunder, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. Now perhaps you've heard, and I know I've heard, some read this passage and say, this is Jesus Christ coming on a white horse conquering for Christianity. Well, what was the first thing that Christ mentioned in the Olivet prophecy? Someone saying, yeah, he's the Christ, but, and using that to deceive. And here we have someone who looks like Christ, gives some similarities to a later description of Christ, but the later description, Christ has a sword coming out of his mouth, a two-edged sword, not a bow. And so we can understand that this first seal is the white horse, is false Christianity. Once again, an immense rise of false Christianity.